Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and the purpose of this video is to show you how to deploy a two-repo project to using Heroku and Netlify. So we're going to deploy the Express backend API using Heroku in the same way we did in the previous video, but we're going to do now is make the front end, the visual part, a separate project that will be deployed on Netlify. Okay, so first we have to make some adjustments, so let's do that. So we're going to go back to our VS Code, and again we deployed test1. Now what I'm going to do is create a new folder called test2. Now in test2 we're going to have the API, so we're going to rename the test1 copy API, so it's literally the same project as before. Move that into test2, but then I'm going to create another folder called Frontend. Okay, and these are both going to be separate repos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the files. So all these files that make up my front end, I'm going to move them into the front end folder. So now these are like as if they were two separate projects. Okay, now first let's just get it working. Okay, so first I'm going to deploy the API, and let's make sure that the API is working, which will be the same as before. So I'm going to close this terminal. I'm going to open up a terminal in the API folder, and we're going to just do like we did before: git init dash git init, git add, git wait, nope, actually it's I didn't add the git. I need to add the git ignore, so let me go back and grab that git ignore from before, same as before. But I need to put that in here. So git paste, and what I want to do is remove. So let's do git status. I want to remove the node modules folder. Git status. Use git add file. But what I want to do is git remove. Let's try git rm node modules. If I do it this way, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete. I just have to delete the node modules folder. That's what I'm going to have to do. Move to trash. Git add again. Git commit, because I just don't want to have that node modules folder pushed to GitHub. Okay, so first commit. There we go. I could reinstall the node modules folder, but it's not really important at this point. Okay, by just typing in npmi. So I got all the stuff that I need. So I'm going to go back to Heroku. We're going to create another project. So we're going to create new app. Yeah. Was it teaching? What did I do before? I want to make sure to keep it consistent. Express teaching 1. Okay, so we'll call this Express teaching 2. So there's our new Heroku application. I also need to add this to GitHub first, so let's go to github.com. I'm going to make a new repository. We'll call this, I think it was teaching Express teaching 2. Do the same thing as before. Connect the repo to GitHub. Paste. Then push the repo to GitHub, git push origin master. Okay, so that is now pushed. So that's there. And now let me go to Express. Go to Heroku. Let's connect our repository to Heroku. Okay, so Express again, let's search that. There's Express Teaching 2, so I'm going to connect that repo. But before I build it, we do know that we need to make sure we put our config variables in here. So I'm going to go grab that URL, the URL for my .env file, because again, .env files should now be pushed up to GitHub. So any variables that are from your .env file should be then copied over into your config variables on Heroku. Okay, so reveal config vars. Again, Mongo URI add. Good. Okay, so that's good. Now let's go back to deploy. Let's deploy the branch. Let's watch it build. And then the API should be up there, but again, no front end now. So when I go to the main page, it shouldn't take me to that page anymore because I took all those files out and made them separately. So this application really is only acting as an API. It's purely a backend application, not something that people in the world will see. This application will only be used to pull data from my other applications. So now if I go to view, I'm not going to see anything here. Okay, so I just get that hello world route that we made back in the second video, I think. But now if I go to /dog, see, I still get the data on all the dogs. Okay, so the API is working. Good. Now we just need to change our front end so it calls this API. So I'm going to need this URL here. Okay. So let's do this. Control. So I'm going to go to my front end files now. And I am going to have to come back in here and do a change later, but just to illustrate a point. I'm going to go back to my JavaScript file. So again, this is my front end folder, separate project. So see, two separate projects. The Git repo, one Git repo in my API. I'm going to have another Git repo here in my front end. So I'm going to go back to my JavaScript and see right now it's calling /dog because before it was served as part of the same project. Okay, so it could use relative URLs. Now I need to use absolute URLs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable here called const URL equals, okay, not that, but the Heroku base URL. So I'm just want to copy this, Control C. Okay, and put that there. So that way I don't have to write the whole thing out every single time. And then if I need to change it, I can. Okay. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just change these to backticks so I can use interpolation. Or actually, to keep it even simpler, I could just do this URL plus dog. Okay, so that way the URL is going to be this plus the endpoint of dog. Except right now there's a slash here and there's a slash there. That will result in a double slash, so I'm going to do that. There we go. Okay, and then I just need to change it in our other spot where I make an API call right here. So URL plus, and there we go. We fix that up. So now instead of calling a relative URL, it's calling the absolute URL to our API. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to run this locally because it should still work locally, except for one thing, but you'll see that in a second. So notice the list of dogs is missing. Why? Let's do Control-Shift-I, and let's see here. Refuse to apply style, that's fine. Failed to load resources from the server, responded with a 404. App.js1. Failures from the server, responded with a status 404 code. Did I save? Okay. Oh, I know. Let's take a look here. CSS style, that should all be fine. Can you even bother to make the API calls? Let's take a look. Network. Let's refresh the page. And let's see what kind of calls were made. jQuery index. No. Oh, okay. So it's failing to get the app.js and style.css file. That's where we're having a problem right now. I have a feeling because it's no longer being served by Express, what I need to change here is this. Dot and dot. Let's save that and see if that makes a difference. Yep, that made the difference. I had to make it a relative file name, not a relative URL, because it was no longer being statically served in the way it was before. Okay, but see, it's still not getting, and see, the fetch failed. Okay, the fetch failed, which we should see a CORS error if I go back to console. And yep, see, CORS is disabled. When you ever see this CORS error, what it stands for is cross-origin resource sharing. It's something that's built into browsers to prevent, you know, one application getting stuff pulled from it that it didn't expect from another application. So that way you can't just find, you know, APIs out there and just pull data where they didn't want you to pull data from. They have to actually allow you to see the data from, and the way it looks at the URL. So notice that this URL is not the same as the URL I'm trying to make an API request to, and says no, 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 you don't have permission to do this. So what I need to do is now go back to my API and add those permissions. The simplest way to do it for Express is actually pretty straightforward. So we're going to go back to our API. Okay, so let's see here. I'm still in my API folder, my terminal, so that makes life easier. I'm going to do npm install CORS. Okay, there's a library called CORS that takes care of all this for you. Okay, so then I just go back to my server.js. Const CORS equals require CORS. So we're bringing this library, and I just put that in my middleware, and I'm good to go. So I can just do app.use, okay, CORS. Okay, and what that does, if I do it this way, it just gives blanket permission to anybody to make calls to my API, which may not be what you want. We'll leave it like that for now, just so you can see that it works. But I gotta deploy this. So I'm gonna do git add git commit -m. Okay, added CORS. And then I'm gonna do git push origin master. Okay, now that's going to push to GitHub. Heroku will notice the change on GitHub. Okay, and then this will automatically deploy again. So we should see in a second that this is going to update. Actually, no, I forgot to turn on the automatic deploys. Yep, never turned on the automatic deploys, or would have. So I'm going to just turn that on real quick, because we're going to probably change it one more time. And then I'm going to just deploy it real quick. Okay, and see, build in progress. This should automatically update once it's done. So just keep an eye on this. Wait for it to finish. And there we go. It's deployed. Okay, so now I should go back to my this, and I should be able to pull from the API now. Okay, and there it goes. See, it successfully pulled from the API because now it has permission to pull from there. Okay, so yay. Now we're going to tighten up that security, but first we're going to deploy this. So what we're going to do is make that repo. So I'm going to close this terminal, and I'm going to open up a new terminal in my Frontend folder. And we're going to make a repo here. Git init, git add dot, git commit -m, first commit. Okay, so that repo is made. I need to go to GitHub. Okay, and then I'm going to make another repo. So new repository. New repository. Git or Express teaching to front. Okay, Express teaching to front. Create that repository. I'm going to link up that repository to this project. Okay, then push it. Git push origin master. And ta-da! Okay, so that's been pushed to GitHub. Now I can head over to Netlify. And on Netlify, I'm going to log in. Okay, I'm going to log in, and then I'm going to create a new site from Git. This is going to be the easiest way, so I'm going to connect my GitHub account again. And I'm going to look for that Express teaching, or I can just search for it. Express. Okay, Express teaching to front. That's what I want to deploy. Okay, master. There's no build command. I'm not doing. It's like if you're using like React or Vue or Angular, usually what you do is you run some sort of build command, and then the build command turns out a sort of built version of your project in a subfolder that's what this is for. You'd say, okay, this is the command. So for like React, you'd do like npm run build, and then it would probably be put onto a folder called build, public, dist. You know, you just have to know how your particular project works. But here, I'm just having static files that are right there in the root, so I don't really need to do anything there. And then there's other cool stuff you can do here. Like if you wanted to define environmental variables, you can do that, which is neat. Because usually you can't use environmental variables on the front end, but Netlify gives you all sorts of really cool things you can do. So I'm going to deploy the website. Okay, so that's going to deploy in a second, and I'll have a URL. And this is the URL. I can change it if I can go to domain and site settings and change these things. But if I click on it, see, it works. It was able to pull the data from our API, because again, we have cores. But we really don't want anybody else pulling data from our API, so we want to tighten up that security. So we want to make sure that only this URL, this domain here, can really pull data from that API. So what we're going to do is take a look at the documentation for that cores middleware. Okay. Actually, the easiest way to do it is to go to this npm.js.com. That's the npm library like database. So let me close that. I want to look up cores. There's the cores database. That's what we downloaded. And just look at the documentation so we can be more specific. So again, we could do that. That's what we did. And that just, but allows everybody to use it. What if we want to get more specific? So let's look for, so in this case, here we go. We want to create this object right here. Okay. And then we require cores option, string cores. Where's the app.use? Okay. Okay, well, let's keep it simple. I'm just going to copy this one. There's a couple different ways you can do this, but I'm just going to create this options object that configures cores for us. So I'm going to go back to my server.js. And before my middleware, I'm going to configure cores. Okay, cores options. I'm going to make this a let because I don't, or const. There's really no reason for me to use var or let. I'll leave that as is. But in this case right here, I want to put the URL. Control Z. Control Z. Let me go copy the URL from Netlify. Here we go. So I'm going to copy this, Control C. And I want this URL to have permission. There we go. And then I need to pass this cores options object. So I'm going to just copy and paste the name of this object. So it's perfect. And that gets passed into the cores function here. And then it'll use those options. So now I need to deploy this again. So I'm going to open up the API in the terminal again. So git add git commit -m cores git push origin master. Okay, so now we should see it deploying again. So give it a second, you can see it like start rebuilding again. I'll just refresh just in case. That's 12:40. What time right now? 12:46. Oh, there it goes. It's building again. So notice that the change on GitHub, and is now rebuilding the website. That's a neat thing about, you know, continuous deployment. You just connect it to your GitHub, and it just happens. You don't have to worry about all these other details. Okay, so that's deployed. So again, this should still work. So I refresh this. Let's see if it's still working. Oh, looks like I might have broke it. So let's take a look at the errors. Excessive fetch from origin has been blocked by cores policy. Okay. Response needs select request mode to no cores to fetch. Okay, so yeah, I didn't like the way I set that up. So let me go back to the docs. Choose a different option. I'm gonna actually copy and just see, make sure that we're passing that right. cores app.get. .com. I'm going to use this pattern because I've used this before, and this works. Okay, and again, I'm just taking that from the docs. So I'm going to copy the configuration to this. It still makes a... So we're still going to change that to const. Okay. Okie dokie, so let me copy this over. And the cool thing about this method is you can have more than one URL. So let's see here. So I'm going to go back to my here where I configure my cores options. And I'm going to copy, oh, I already did that. Okay. So let me just change this to const whitelist. And I just want to copy my, really I just want one URL right there right now. Okay. Okay, and callback cores options. I'm assuming I'm passing this into the cores middleware. So I'm going to do that. And then I want to make sure my URL is there. So let's go back to Netlify. Copy. Okay. And I'm going to actually just do two, because I want to put the HTTP version in there as well. But that's a string. So I think that might be the issue. HTTP. So that was the HTTP and the HTTPS version of the URL. And aside from that, I think we are good. So let's save that. Git add dot git commit dash m cores and git push origin master. Again, I could have just left the empty cores in there and that would do the project, be fine for the moment. But again, if you want to know how to do tighter security, this is what you'd have to do. Okay, just wait for that to kick in and deploy. But say by default, that's what it's going to do. Okay, web npm start. That's where you would use a proc file to tell it to do something other than that if you wanted to. Never actually played with this. Configure dynos. Let's take a look at this. Okay. Can we configure that? No, cancel. Here. Interesting. I'll play with that later. Okay, and that's just now. Yep, okay, so deployed. So let's go back to our Heroku site, refresh. And it's working, good. So we have the security now. So you have the cores in there, other URLs can. So if I were to do the local one, I did not put like a local host on that list of URLs, so that one should not be working. And see, it doesn't. Okay. So basically, that should get a cores error. So just confirm that it does. See, unable to fetch. Okay, so point is now we have a more secure version of our app. Only the URLs that we want can make API calls to our backend application, and our frontend application deployed on Netlify is working just fine. Okay, so there you go. That's how you would deploy it. And the cool thing is you can use that same API for multiple front-end applications. So you can create an API that has a whole bunch of data and then create multiple things out of it as needed, because there's two separate applications, which is the nice about doing it this way. And also not having all the traffic of your website going to your Heroku page, going to your Netlify page, also just helps break up some sort of, lets you get more bang for your buck over your free tiers on these services. So I'll leave it at that. My name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy.